this is not what you hear, right? Your reality is not what you hear. You can shape and form your reality by your perspective. I can remember trying to express a vulnerability, but it came out violent.
I'll let you take 5 steps forward, and guess what? I'm gonna poke you at the right time just to get you to react. The documentation is here.
Yeah.
So now you're gonna go back to court. So you got to be aware of those tools, man, those cycles.
Yeah. Can I truly let out what I'm thinking?
But I do help the young man understand that it's normal to be angry.
It's how you
and
deal
have
with
those
it.
emotions. That's correct. And then also, I'm not a mental health professional, so I try to get them the help that they need from a professional.
Sometimes we as Christian men marry these holier than thou women. And so he was like, I do everything I'm supposed to do. I pray, I take care of her, I take care of the kids. And he said, she can hear everything else for everybody else, but she can't hear the silent cry that's going inside.
Man, I am so excited. I brought my brothers here from another mother to come and talk about manhood. My Manhood Matters is a segment where we discussing real issues with real men, real times, real journeys. It would be remiss not to bring these brothers on this podcast to talk about daily issues that we as men deal with. I have my brother right here, Mr. Robert Taylor. I got my boy right here, Dr. Rubin Cockrell. My main man right here, Mr. Christopher Buckner. And Nashville's president, Reginald Holder. So, man, I thank y'all for coming on the show. I really want to dive into it. I don't want to waste your time. Because we talked about this earlier, and Rubin is finally joining us, what's the role of masculinity now in the home? As a single man and as a married man? Anybody?
Well, I think it's situational leadership. I believe, because I addressed both, previously being married but now single. I think it's changed. However, what's key is to have some principles, some foundational principles that you have within yourself as a man. That is a part of self-love, self-care, self-function, in terms of having that foundation, the principles you believe in, that you live accordingly through with your life as a single man, but also leading and guiding a family. You've got to have some principles and core foundations that no matter what, that you operate and live off of is a key foundation. It's going to be different for each and every one of us because of our respective experiences. However, you've got to have some foundational principles. So for me, in a personal professional realm, I operate off of I to the third power equals P to the second power. How can I make an impact, be influential, and create incomes equal operating in purpose, drop down based upon core values and principles, and be profitable, which is social entrepreneurship. Now that bursts from my mission to help educate, enrich, and enhance people's lives, and in helping them achieve their goals, I naturally hit my own goals, which is servant leadership. So that's my mantra, regardless of if I'm in a significant relationship or not. That's what I operate and live off of, and try to instill some aspects of it from my children.
Have you always been that dude?
Yes and no. It's been a progression over a period of time.
Okay. When you notice the progression?
Life happens. Stepping stones and stumbling blocks. Going from drug trafficking and a doctorate degree to dealing with loss of a child, to just those moments, man. That's what makes you or breaks you.
Wow.
And you find out about yourself.
And with those of you, we'll hear more of Rubin's story later, but I think, Rubin, you told me that's how you paid for college. Was it through drug trafficking?
Well, it wasn't necessarily through, because I had a scholarship.
Right, I remember that.
But it helped out in various ways. That supplemental.
It helped to get you out a little bit. You donated. He was a philanthropist. He was a philanthropist. Get it right. I've got no disrespect. He was a philanthropist as well.
Yes.
I got you. Anybody else?
I would like to piggyback on that. I definitely can understand residual income. But the role as masculinity in the house, I would have to say, starts with integrity and responsibility. Responsibility. I've been married 18 years, and what I have to constantly do is make adjustments and learn how to compromise on things, and I think that a lot of times we're taught, especially Black men, that we have to have a standard or some principles and stand on them no matter what.
Right.
And sometimes we jeopardize or sabotage the value of the relationship or the household value with us standing on what we believe are our personal principles or purposes.
Are the
and not taking in
are the
mind.
personal principles right though?
You could be dead set on personal principles that are filled with dignity.
Okay.
But if I don't have room to be a husband
Okay.
and be a father, I don't have room to have those relational conversations with my significant other. My personal principles can impede or infringe on what's actually holding up me as the man and being masculine in my household. So I definitely understand what this brother is saying, and it's progressive. Because when I first got in a relationship, we argued about the carpet not being close enough to the, to the sink.
It's the little things.
Yeah. So I had to figure out what really mattered, and I had to add value to my relationship in order to find my purpose as a masculine man in the relationship and instill those purposes where they're needed.
How did you
Because-
find them?
Well, trial and error.
Okay.
A lot of my wife tapping me like, "Baby, they're girls." I'm dealing with my family as if I'm dealing with some guys on the basketball court. There's a place for it. I would say I'm the disciplinary, but there's a place for it, and sometimes I have to be able to give, and sometimes it's a time for me to be quiet because I know if I open my mouth, it might not come out in the way that masculinity will do more harm and disrupt the harmony than it would good.
Why do you think, fellas, we as men don't deal with the personal space in our hearts where it needs to be healed? I'm big on that little boy piece that causes us not to grow as men. And sometimes it can frustrate the home, it can frustrate the marriage, it can frustrate relationship, business adventure.
Well, I think it's not just one situation. It's several. I mean, if you look at it from a historical perspective, traditionally, if we be transparent and real amongst our grandfathers, our fathers, we were taught in terms of crying, other things was a sign of weakness and strength. And so we're ingrained from a young age in terms of emotional suppression.
Okay.
And that emotional suppression starts off as a pebble, turns to a rock. So professionally, we grow. Even spiritually, we may grow.
Right.
But emotionally and holistically, we're still stuck as that child. So that when certain things push us in a certain way and we don't identify what our personal professional triggers are, then it comes out. It comes out in the form of resentment in other ways. And then if we don't have an environment that's a safe space,
Right.
where we get to the point where we can show transparency and vulnerability and not be thrown back at us or in a non-judgmental manner, then we close back up. We're not going to open up again. But you had that opportunity. Use that against me, or, it was used as a judgmental, you close that back up, and it's hard. So it's not just one situation. Yeah.
Because we end up finding our safe place, our safe space somewhere else.
That's true.
We may find that safe space, younger when knees were good, playing ball. And I get in an argument out here on the basketball court because it's a safe space, but I'm arguing about something else, but I'm getting all this feeling. I'm filtering all of that other that I can't cry as a man or let my feelings be known as a man and be vulnerable over here. So I flush all that out through this activity. I flush it out through, like I said, sometimes through working. So I accomplish more. I go after. I have to stay late at work because I don't want to go home because it's not safe. If I do that, I can't say what I really want to say at this space. So the little boy then gets locked up, and he still never finds that place to really come out. And then even because again I'm being a little older, so I wasn't this guy because it wasn't there for me.
Right.
But some men get stuck in adolescence and they just revert themselves back to their, they got the baddest man cave there is because they've accomplished, but they go in there and bury themselves in them video games.
Right.
So they get stuck in those video games because if I come out and talk about what's really going on with me, I'm looked at as less of a man. She can cry on my shoulder, but I can't even say
What's going on?
what's going on.
Right.
And they'll ask what you thinking and how do you feel, but can I say that?
Yeah.
Can I truly let out what I'm thinking?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I had an opportunity to talk to a brother, and he said, Sneed, it's amazing, especially, and I'm a Christian, so I believe in the gamut of the Bible. But sometimes we as Christian men marry these holier than thou women. And so he was like, you know, I do everything I'm supposed to do. I pray, I take care of her, I take care of the kids. And he said, she can hear everything else for everybody else, but she can't hear the silent cry that's going inside of me. Make love to her, intimate with her, but she don't know when I roll up at night, there's a tear going down my face because I'm hurting. So I think we have a lot of men, like you said, the whole trust issue. Was it ever a time where you were vulnerable and it slapped you in the face? Was it ever a time you was vulnerable with your mate and it backfired?
In my previous marriage, but there was a lot of anger. There was arguing in there. There was a lot of disconnect and dysfunction going on, more so than my current marriage. And in that, and it didn't take but one time.
Right.
It really didn't, of something that was said maybe it was like a couple years had passed, but then it was brought back up totally at the wrong time and totally in the spirit to wound me. And it was like pulling the scab back open,
Right.
or busting those stitches open. And I truly went, like a lot of men, we can disconnect really for years.
That's true.
You know, we're
That's
there,
true.
but we're actually disconnected.
Yeah.
Well, in that area, even though I was still trying to make things work, but
Right.
in that area, I was disconnected. So yes, it can definitely happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all this. I know each one of y'all personally. I know y'all mentor a lot of young men. How do y'all deal with the angry? How do we deal with the angry black man? And this is not a racist card or anything. It's just this is some of the things that we just deal with. And so when you talking to young men or even older men, there's still a element of anger. And it's not so much about society. It's that what's within is causing me so angry, and why come we don't want to deal with it?
Well, I would just say that for me,
Were you ever angry, Robert?
yes, I have been angry.
It's hard. It's hard to say. It's hard to
It
believe.
has happened from time to time. But I do help the young men understand that it's normal to be angry.
It's how you
and
deal
have
with
those
it.
emotions. That's
Yeah.
correct. And then also, I'm not a mental health professional, so I try to get them the help that they need from a professional.
Okay.
So I do try to connect them with resources in the community so that they can address the anger issue and identify why is it that
What do
they're
you see most of
angry.
the time why they're angry, Robert?
I think a lot of times in our community specifically, there's a cycle of fatherlessness that's been going on. And there's a gentleman, his name is Roland Warren. He used to run the National Fatherhood Initiative. And
Oh yeah, he's still
yeah,
around.
he is. He's still living, yeah.
Okay.
And,
He's been around for a long time.
that's it. And he would always say that every child is born with a hole in the heart, the shape of their father.
Mm.
And so that hole will get filled with something
Right.
if
Right.
the father isn't available to them. And sometimes that something is anger when the father is absent, and trying to figure out who they are as a young man and why they do the things that they do without being able to see the example that was there before them. And so that's what I've seen most often.
Okay.
But like I said, I would want to get them to a referral to say, here's a resource. Here's somebody that can help you think through and talk through why it is that you're angry, and then come up with some skills to help you to address that anger and then to be able to channel that in a more positive direction so that you can reach the goals that you have for yourself.
Well, let me ask you this: was there ever a time? I know all y'all had a relationship with your dads. Did it ever affect you in your manhood? Because you know, some of us grew up in the era that we don't hug. You don't hug your daddy. You don't say I love you. Did it ever affect you as a man?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think definitely, the period of time where, um, physically he may have been there, financially, but the emotional aspect
Was
was
gone.
not shown.
Because his father didn't show him.
Didn't show them. That's what I was speaking of earlier,
Right.
of that multi-generational cycle. It hasn't been shown, and they only know what they have learned from. However, the other side of the coin is that knowing that, you have to be intentional about seeking out certain resources.
Okay.
So I think that, and those resources may be a variety of different things taken upon yourself to learn, or you can just make an excuse like, hey, it ain't happened for me. I ain't see it. Oh well,
Right.
you gonna deal with this situation like it is, so I can move on.
Because back in the day, it was all about I love you because I'm providing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got a house, you got a roof over your head, you got clothes on your back. That means I love you.
Because that defined manhood. That was one of the ways. It wasn't easy. I don't want to say that it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it was simpler.
Right.
It was he goes to work, he brings the money home, and he brings himself home.
Yeah, that part.
And because he's doing those things, he's showing love.
Right.
That's what he needs to be a good provider because of the resources not being there or the so many obstacles to gaining resources was the system in this country.
Mhm.
It's still there, and even for I don't know, we said black men, but even dealing with other young men of other races,
Yeah.
where I'm able to go into high schools and deal with young men, the thing that separates it is the resources. Fathers are not there because really statistically, black men really fight and try to be in their kids' life. We hear the story of them not, young men growing up, young ladies growing up without their father. We hear that side. We just don't hear about it in other races. It happens at either the same pace or even a greater pace
No respect of
in
person.
other races. The thing that separates it is they have resources. There's family resources. Grandfather has resources. So they still get the car at 16. They still go on the trip. They
Gotcha.
still buy the latest sneaker and all that, and it's no big deal. So when you don't have, when you living with a place where father's not there or father's not fathering the way he should or not meeting you emotionally where you need to be, doesn't see you, those sort of things. And then the family is struggling for resources, all that combined compounds it.
Right.
Simply compounds it. Because there's young men that because they have the resources, now in their mind, they substitute that for the love.
And
Even though dad's not really there to give it,
Yeah.
but they substitute because I get the stuff from him.
Gotcha. That's why I really like Robert's program. It's really need to be really on a global scale. My background is child support, and so when I listen to these non-custodial parents that are fathers, it's not like they don't want to have a relationship with the kid. They don't have a relationship with the baby mama. God forbid Robert get a new girlfriend and you don't want the baby mama no more. That's a whole nother component.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of
Be
times
something major for me. I'll be in child support court the rest of my life.
Uncle, Robert has 7 kids. Same mom. Yeah. Anyway, great story. But what was I going with that? I was saying that to say, I think when we get so frustrated as men, we just shut down and not getting those resources.
Yeah. And
So speaking to that, I was thinking, we can only manifest what we're exposed to. You asked the question about being vulnerable. And some of us never had the opportunity to even see a safe place because our perspective
Right.
is so skewed from what we are used to or where we come from that we can't even identify safe places. So I can remember trying to express a vulnerability, but it came out violent.
Oh, okay.
It came out like I was barking. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think that a lot of times, and speaking on the anger of the young people, and I always try to take this into perspective because we do a lot with the young people.
Right.
You got a group, you got a genre of people that vicariously living. They don't like the police because the generation before them didn't like the police. It's not because they have been racially discriminated against. It's because they've been exposed to something
Right.
before they was even had the cognitive ability to put it where it needed to go as a person, right?
Right.
So now you vicariously living through something that you hear that's not even your reality. So you show up angry and creating chaos that's not there, right?
Right.
So they show up and, so we got to have, just like me and this brother was talking, we got to start having that conversation in our communities. We got to start grooming these young people with these conversations in our own personal communities and getting in their mind that this is not what you hear, right? Your reality is not what you hear. You can shape and form your reality by your perspective. right? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So I think, be honest, I think for the last past 10 to 15 years, I think we've done a great job in trying to bring in that generation. I've just seen a mass, listening to y'all, watching y'all stories, we just got to continue to be consistent and doing what you can and stand in your lane.
I agree. I do think though that when you look at our society and our community today, that you see some areas that we still got some work to do.
Oh yeah, we definitely got work to do.
And so yes, we are doing a better job of promoting healthy parenting and making sure that we're more in touch with our emotions and can share that with our children and so forth. We also have to take it another step and hold each other accountable.
That's true.
So that's why I love having these conversations, because we can talk as men about how we can have a standard in our community, recognize that the standard isn't being met, and come up with ideas on how we can hold each other accountable to meeting that standard and continue to set that for our children so that the next generation can be better off than what we are. And so I think that's what we need.
With the ideas lead to actions and level of consistency. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What's your take on it, Rue?
I was just going to add on combination of both these brothers. You know, there's an expression that says it takes a village to raise a child, but the village is dysfunctional to raise dysfunctional children. And so a lot of times with the young people, they rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day. You can keep me in it, but they're going to go off the actions of what they see amongst the peers. So we do have to do that self-check and create those environments in space where we can share, but then don't leave the conversation on deaf ears of sharing that we go your way, you go your way. What's the follow-up?
Right.
And how do we hold ourselves accountable?
That's good.
And if you got access to resources, well, here's some resources that are available.
Right.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, man, the justice system, the child support, it is not for men. The judges, they're not for men. I don't care if it's a female judge or a male judge or the mediators, they are not for men.
Don't put this what I'm about to say on camera because I lose my job. I just don't. I agree 150%. No, seriously, don't air this part. We should never be in the business anyway. We should never come into your. But with some situations you have to, because it's not even about you not being a great daddy. Sometimes it's to keep peace with the mama because she's crazy as a busy bug.
Yeah. You know,
But we should never. I told my boss that time we should never have to be involved.
Yeah. And so as men, it's preparing ourselves that not to get caught up playing emotional unos and checkers in a chess society.
Right.
And so knowing certain norms so that you're not set up, because if that brother has anger issues, then on top of this case is being thrown, this is being thrown on, and if they have no outlets, no matter what their story is, then they're going to react in a certain way.
Right.
And if they have no one pulled them aside to identify his triggers,
Right.
and how people may poke against you,
Right.
then I'm going to let you take 5 steps forward, and guess what? I'm going to poke you at the right time just to get you to react. The documentation is here.
Yeah.
So now you're going to go back to court. So you got to be aware of those tools, man, those cycles.
Yeah,
Those
fatherhood
frames.
initiative, fatherhood program, because they teach you how to deal with that, man. It just the whole psychological cycle that we go through. My next question is: at this point in your age, what's your trigger now? Do you still have triggers? What's your trigger at 50 plus versus 30 plus? Ruben, you're not 40 yet, are you, Ruben?
No, I am. About 44.
Oh, okay.
He old, man.
AARP age. What's the trigger for y'all now?
I know my trigger is disrespect.
Okay, what does that do for you?
I can't tolerate it, man. And I'm working on it. I'm trying to do better. But if I sense any form of disrespect, like it just shuts me down for a while.
Do you snap?
No, I don't snap. But I might change the way I move around that person.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Okay.
I can't say what I really want to say since we record. Right. But man, disrespect me in public and see what happens.
Right.
That's all I got.
I agree with you, man. I would say disrespect, definitely, and sense of entitlement.
Ooh.
Sense of entitlement.
As a whole or from a woman?
Sense of entitlement in terms of tone.
Okay. Okay.
I say both.
Okay.
I don't care who you is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think that and it's a difference if it's a one-off. We talk because as you decrease communication, you leave room for assumptions. However, it's a difference if it's a one-off versus a trend.
Right.
Then that's a whole different conversation.
So how do you deal with that, Rube, when it happens? You feel somebody talking like a sense of entitlement or
Well,
disrespect?
I think you got to step back and look at, okay, is this a one-off? Let's talk about it, and then some changes have happened, or did I play a part in it? Okay, the reality's up, and then after the conversation happens, if it's a trend, then sometimes as men, out of our lack of stepping up for ourselves and showing self-love, we let things slide by off the sense of creating a false sense of peace. When reality is you're building resentment within, besides addressing that situation right then and there in a proactive manner versus reactive. And then you get to a point of where if the pebble is not a rock turns into a boulder, and you could have addressed it here. That's what I mean by that progression of things.
Gotcha.
You get to a point of where it's like, man, I want a sense of peace.
Right.
Money comes and goes, things come and go. I can replace this, whatever. But at the end of the day, you want peace.
Yeah, that's why men shut down, because they want that peace.
Yeah. And in what he's saying, you actually will find when you start the process, as he's saying, from, because you're really talking about from sand to the pebble, from the pebble to the rock, from the rock to the boulder. But if you get up every day and decide, whatever are the boulders in my day, let me deal with them first.
Okay.
But it's easier to deal with the sand.
Right.
Because the sand, you let it sift through your hands and all that. So I'm going to deal with this sand issue because this boulder issue is heavy. It's big. But if I deal with the boulder first, the rest of my day goes smoother because everything's smaller. I've gotten the big things out of the way. So the same thing with relationships and with these young men. And one of the things I say young men and with our wives, we talk about that way, but to ask better questions. As you said, I won't make it so, okay, he snapped. So I'm not gonna make the assumption of it's just disrespect. I'm not gonna assume that, but as I'm checking it, let me ask a couple questions. Now, if you just prove yourself to be disrespectful and just prove yourself after these after I'm trying my best to handle it in a nice fashion and a mature fashion, then you've shown me who you are. Right. And as you say, now I most definitely will move differently if I move around you at all.
Right.
Because you've shown me who you are with me trying to walk through the thing. Because you simply may have gone through something. Right. It came out on me, and then I can say, okay, well, let's take a pause there. Let's not talk about this today. Let's not deal with this right now. Let's let you get yourself together. That sort of thing.
Okay. And I was thinking I'm gonna piggyback on both of you guys. My triggers change kind of like my taste bud palettes. As I get older, I start reading the small print, your head lean back a little bit. Things that really used to bother me as I progress in life, I get a different perspective on it. Like maybe he's being or sounding. I like what you said, the entitlement piece. But a lot of times people are guarding themselves because of insecurity. Right. So maybe she's talking to me like that because she's really hurt from a place where you're talking about. So the older I get, the more I start peering into what the real issue could be. Right. So I take the time to, but disrespect used to be one of my major ones. At this point in my life, I'm a little impatient with intentional ignorance. We have a culture that we have a people that have taken on ignorance as a culture, right? We defy everything that represents or replicates education. You have people that are clearly educated, but once they get a platform, they appear or want to appear to be uneducated and speak improper English for whatever reason, and it's okay to a certain extent.
For likes and clicks.
So we're glorifying ignorance as a people, and some of us as a people can't afford to glorify that type of ignorance because we need to still uphold a standard.
Right.
Especially in society, in the eye of society. So at this point in my life, I can't stand to see ignorance glorified and taken on as a culture.
Yeah, entrepreneur John Hope Bryant says, I'm making intelligence sexy again, making being smart sexy again, because for so long society has made it, or certain pockets of society has made that you're not accepted. You're trying to be something you're not, and all that. But that's always who we've been as a people. We've always been intelligent, and intelligence is sexy.
Yeah. Just speaking of sexy, what would y'all tell these millennial men how to date? What does dating look like now? I've been married too long, so I don't even really know. I wouldn't know the first step. Right.
I ain't got the answer.
Rube, it's different, ain't it, Rube?
It's different, man. I'm just gonna keep it 100. I mean, it's different, and it's different levels, because if you are single, you have some access to capital. You can move wherever. You're not stuck in one place. I mean, you got options.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is to take the time out to heal. Take time out to heal, discover yourself, in the process of, and do a SWOT analysis, looking at where the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats are around you, and then through that life course correction, what does next look for you?
Right.
And then
What does next look for you? What does it look like for you?
for me? Which part?
Where you are now? What's next for you in terms of the relationship or dating piece? Certain things I know you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain tangibles that I would say definitely are non-negotiables looking at now moving forward. I think for me, because I travel a lot,
Right.
and involved in different industries, that a certain level of security a person has to have, but I have to create that environment so they can feel secure.
Right.
And one that can adjust in different ways. And for me, my kids are non-negotiable, so I'm a package.
Right.
And so have understanding with that aspect of, and then just grow on a global scale. I mean, and there are different nuances, but it's interesting. I mean, I think I tell them that what can make or break you is the person who you choose in terms of your vision.
So a woman that's secure, understand just a package, and what else?
There are a lot of things, man. I mean, spiritual, holistically sound.
Right.
One that's up with you when you're up, but down. Who's respectful, who can communicate, have a sense of emotional intelligence,
Okay.
and talk with you and not at you.
Right.
And there are some other norms
Okay.
there. Just have fun and like the experience.
At least be
I've been
friends.
I've been different worlds. I mean,
Right.
I go from speaking and training to I'm in the cigar industry. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
I
You that.
I interact with different types of people. So
Right.
who have a level of comfort of interacting, and then just communicating with me how they want me to cheerlead, either pom-poms up close or pom-poms from afar.
Right.
Because I don't believe in myself growing and a significant other just being on the sideline.
Right.
Let us grow consistently together.
Right.
Right. And there are other norms too, but I think
That's some good foundational norms.
Those are foundational. Those are key foundational pieces. I think that are key, and I get a chance because I'm around the globe to see the makeups
Right.
of interactions with.
So the next Miss Cockrell might be from Colombia.
And I can neither confirm nor deny.
I'm not talking about Columbia, Tennessee either.
Oh, no.
Deny what might happen to occur. I can't confirm.
The brother did say global.
You did say global. I didn't
Yeah.
know South
Yeah.
Africa. We don't know where she's coming from, but she's coming.
We'll see how
We'll see.
how it all flows. But I do get a chance because I travel the globe to interact and meet a variety of different norms and perspectives of how women think. And
So how do y'all teach these young guys how to date?
First of all, with the young guys, because I get to talk to a bunch of them, and the first thing is knowing yourself.
Right.
And the confidence in yourself. Here you are looking at this young girl just because of the legs, the behind, the hair, the whatever.
Big booty and smile.
And all you thinking about is what that's going to do for you, and it's all about a feeling.
Right.
It's really nothing about a commitment. It's nothing about where I'm going. Nothing about a vision. Nothing about communication. The fun, the laughter, responsibility. None of that's involved. You're just looking at, as you say, big booty and a smile. That's all you're looking at. So I talked to him. So where are you going? Where are you taking her? I've talked to a couple of young men who were engaged. Okay, you're engaged. She's got your ring. Y'all gonna make it official. So where are you going? And I'll ask them, and they've never been asked that question.
Do you recommend that they be single for a while before they even decide to get married? At least do the things that you want to do before you decide to do.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, and it's case by case different for everyone.
That's true. That's true.
But I think you have to have some structure and foundation in place. One thing my grandmother always told me, she was like, handle your business, and the women will always be there.
Yeah.
And that is true.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
in terms
good.
of
That's
your
good.
business, as far as your structure, your foundations, your consistencies, your habits, creating your habits, because taking into consideration someone else in the picture, and if you don't have that foundational piece yourself yet, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
One thing I love when I interviewed Reggie earlier, he said one thing about women is this: when a man don't have a vision, the women will take it and run with it. They'll create something and you look like a 5-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and then now you upset.
Yeah. Because and again, since you brought it does go back to the garden. The cultivation of it, Adam's job was to cultivate and maintain and to manage the garden. Okay. It's the same thing with our wives. We're to create an atmosphere that cultivates to bring the best. Because if you do a crop, you want to bring the best bounty from that crop that you can get. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're cultivating an atmosphere in your home and making it where that wife can flourish without a care, she knows she's covered, then she can be the best version of herself that God had in mind for her. Look at the benefit you're going to have in your home because she's in a place where she's flourishing. But you get there, first of all, again, by having yourself together. Right. Adam had himself together. God had given him things to do, and he was doing it. Right. He's naming the animals. He's taking care of responsibility. He's managing, and he's setting the atmosphere. As we hear, happy wife, happy life, but I say, but who makes her happy? Who sets the atmosphere for her to be happy? The husband has to. Right. So if I set the atmosphere, it is going to be happy wife, happy life, because she's flourishing. And I've set an atmosphere where the soul is good, everything planted in there. And so the fruit that I'm looking for, that I expect, is supposed to be the best.
Right.
Supposed to be, because I'm setting the atmosphere for that.
Right.
I think the other caveat, I think what you say is spot on. However, the caveat to that is, in those earlier stages, is finding out what men were involved in her life. Was her dad involved with her life?
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
If her dad was not involved, what men involved? Because you can do all those things. However, if they weren't exposed to someone doing those things, they don't recognize it as a sense of gratefulness, and they recognize it as a sense of entitlement.
That's a whole nother piece.
Which creates that resentment, like, we're doing these things, here's opportunities at hand, and then someone else is trying to show you those things at hand, that these are things to be done. And because you don't have that template and don't operate with that template of intentionality that, I wasn't exposed to those things, but you know what? Let me check in with someone who may be more mature,
right?
Or another couple. If you're not willing to do that, then that resentment carries on. Like, why am I doing this?
Right. We're gonna wrap this up because my brother Robert Taylor got to go. He's dozing off over here too. He got his Black Panther outfit today, represent Black History Month. Quick word, what would you tell to the brothers today about fatherhood?
I think for me, one of the most important things that we kind of talked about already was just that standard that we have set in our house, and holding each other accountable to it. One of the things that I've learned is that once you identify a standard and you make sure that everybody in the household is aware of that standard, now your children will start holding you accountable to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And once they know that they can hold you accountable and that you'll step up to that challenge, that's what creates the environment that's going to give you the outcomes with the children that you're looking for.
Wow. Rubin, talk about that whole young man is want to start a business, the power of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece. But can I touch on that fatherhood too?
You sure can.
Yeah, I think for the aspect of the father, what's most important is quality of time versus quantity of time.
Yeah.
Because because there are a lot of fathers who may come home, be around, physically may be in a house, however they're not in the house.
Right.
So it's about the quality of times, whether you're married or not married, the quality of time that you have with your kid. You can impress them from afar, but impacting their lives up close and personal. Being active and involved in their school. Being involved with PTA, because you usually see women, as finding out what their needs are, what do they like, trying different things that are different. For me, I have the unique experience because I'm an only child.
Right.
So seeing my daughter and my rainbow son interact, that's all new to me. Seeing siblings interact up close and personal.
Right.
So that's a learning experience for me because I've never experienced that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so really being mindful of those moments, taking those moments in, but on the entrepreneurship, as this ties together, is finding ways to be proactive where you can have both of them. It's a sacrifice regardless of, but being proactive in your business endeavors so that when it is that time for the kids, you can be able to focus in on the kids. Things happen, but you can focus in on the kids. So sometimes that comes with a sacrifice that, okay, I got to get these things done because I know this is my time with the kids. And it's not for the faint at heart.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
You're right. Chris, I'm going to throw this monkey wrench in yours. What do you say to the husband that's struggling in his marriage and don't want to be married no more?
That is a monkey wrench.
What wisdom would you give?
I think, going back to the previous question you had asked, how will we advise others to date or young men to date? And I think that we all touched on the same thing as far as getting to know who you are as a man.
Okay, first.
A man has a responsibility of starting the foundation because we are the support system for the household.
Right.
So I think we have to know ourselves and first of all, abstain from certain things.
Okay.
And in that abstinence, I learned discipline.
Okay.
So me as a man in a marriage that don't want to be in the marriage any longer could be me abstaining from just submitting to those emotional feelings.
Okay.
And kind of stepping back out of the situation and giving an aerial view to what's going on actually in the marriage. Involve some godly people that will instill godly principles in the marriage. Get some counseling. Talk to somebody, whether it's group or individual.
Right.
And sometimes we have to make sure our own check engine light is not on.
That's true.
Because sometimes what I'm ready to leave about is actually what I'm gonna take with me to any other relationship.
Oh, wow.
So and it's easy always to put it off, and that's the original sin, to put it off. Well, God, it's this woman that you gave me.
Yeah.
you know, and just because I don't stand in the mirror long enough or spend enough time with myself to know that it's not her, it's actually something in me.
But even if it's something in her, I think God will kind of grace you to how to handle it.
Right.
You know?
And even in my own marriage, I've encountered and incurred some affliction that wasn't of my own doing.
Right.
Where I would have to step back out of the situation before I just went completely off and kicked the trash can open like I'm out of here.
Oh, the news.
Right. So now I have to sit back and do some evaluation and some assessments, and I have to identify the value of this relationship outside of how I feel. Now I need somebody to come in and say, hey, I went to this one guy and I said, man, I've been providing this, I've been providing that, and she ain't bringing nothing to the table. And he went back in my past and he said, well, when you was locked up, who was providing then? And I said, well, she was doing everything. He said, well, she was the table.
Right.
So that sense of entitlement sometimes rears its ugly head. And unbeknownst situations to where I got to step back and identify that, hold up, wait a minute.
Right.
This could be a whole trick of the enemy.
Yeah. That's good. Reggie, what do you say about the men that's 50 plus that feel like God, they going through the midlife crisis, feel like they don't even, is God, am I still usable? Or my dreams ain't come true, so I'm stepping back. They isolated.
I tell them simply to take a deep breath, take a look at inventory of your life and inventory of what you want, and start over or keep going. Yeah. It's just a reset. See, I'm totally built for that. My thing is the Joshua Caleb. I'm Caleb. Caleb was 85 and said, okay, Joshua, I done helped y'all fight and conquer everything else. Well, I done had my eye on the mountain, that high ground. Right. So, okay, y'all, while y'all chilling and getting y'all's houses set up and all that, I'm taking my crew and we still fighting because I want the high ground. Right. It's 85. So what stopping for what? Right. You know, I honestly don't get that. You know, okay, you're 50, what have you accomplished? Okay, if you've accomplished some things, so what have God told you to do? Right. That's really the first question. Have you actually accomplished the things that God has shown you? So now, where is he transitioning you to? That's good. So I understand what you want. Okay, you want to retire early. Retire early to what? Yeah. See, to what? Okay, come out of industry, come out of entrepreneurship and hook up with Robert and his program. Right. So you still be an asset there. You got all this experience, all this growth, all these accomplishments. Now let's pour it into this next generation. Pour it even into those who are your same age, right. You know, who haven't accomplished. They still in the fight. They trying to get there, trying to figure it out. Right. You know, they don't understand, you know, the stock market. They don't even understand life insurance. They don't understand, you know, you're talking about entrepreneurship. All they know means I'm working for me and it's just me and I'm killing it. Right. But it's just you. They don't understand, you know, scaling and getting more people on board with you. So help those guys, then reach down and help those 30-somethings, then go back to the teenagers. You have a whole lot to give just because you're 50, 55, 60 years old. And for me, I tell them, I still have a whole lot to do. That's still a few more plaques I want on the wall. Yeah. You know, but you've done a lot. That's still a few more things that I want, you know, for my heavenly crown. Okay. But it has to be what God is instructing me to do. That's it.
And you bring up some good points, but I think another key piece, particularly for youth, is a sense of transparency. Yes. Of not just the positive things, but totally challenges. Totally. And I fell on my face.
Totally.
You know, it was part of my testimony. I just fell on my face. Totally. That transparency they look for and they respect. You know,
authentic.
That authenticity.
Yeah.
They look for that transparency because you may not be at that point, but you can show that I'm humble enough to share with you that I've been at this point.
My story.
Yes. However, these are some of the tools and things that I did. Talking with them once again, then talking at them.
That's true. Well, that's it, fellas. That's My Manhood Matters.
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 To see future My Manhood Matters episodes, do me a favor, click like, share, and subscribe. Tune in for more My Manhood Matters episodes.